Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today at the National Federation of Municipal Analysts Conference. My name is Mark Capel, and I'm serving as your 2023 NFMA Chairman. The gathering today brings together the finest experts and professionals in the municipal finance industry and provides a platform for knowledge sharing, collaboration, and discussion of the critical issues currently facing municipal credits. As muni analysts, we play a vital role in the stability and transparency of our market, and we facilitate the responsible decision-making, efficient capital allocation, and even fostering sustainable development. Over the next 3 days, the conference will serve as an intensive opportunity to engage the industry leadership, gain insights from esteemed speakers, and explore emerging trends and developing best practices. Over the course of this event, we'll delve into a range of topics, including economic outlooks, post-COVID stress on our communities, infrastructure financing, technological advances, and of course our Scrum. And as a quick aside note, the Scrum will be sponsored with a open beer and wine bar. That's sort of late-breaking news. Yeah, we find that facilitates a more robust and entertaining discussion. On behalf of the NFMA board and membership, along with our esteemed partners and sponsors, I extend my sincere appreciation to all the speakers and panelists and participants who contributed their time and expertise to make this event possible. Your presence here signifies your commitment to our market. I'm confident the next few days will be filled with stimulating discussions, thought-provoking sessions, and fruitful networking opportunities. Thank you, and I wish you all a productive and enriching conference ahead. Let me now turn it over to Brent Miller, the NFMA Annual Conference Chair, whose work over the past 9 months culminates here at the happiest place on earth. Brent.
So a few months ago, I was talking to one of my muni sales coverage about this conference, and he's quick to tell me that the first thing he found on Google for the NFMA was the National Flea Market Association. I also went to California earlier this year, visited Disneyland with my 3 young children, 5 and under. I know many of you brought your families with. I cannot tell them where I currently am. I do want to give a quick warning about underselling something. Poonam, are you, I know Poonam is somewhere out there. And my second child was about to be born. I was looking for a lower commitment role in the NFMA, and Poonam Patidar asked me to be co-chair of the webinar subcommittee. The year was 2020. And so this actually turned out to be a 2-year role, which was kind of unadvertised. And some people have asked me how I happened to become the conference chair this year. And I was fortunate enough to have Nene Jenkins give me a call, and she wasn't able to make it to the conference this year, but she wanted to be at least. And she said, Brent, you'd be a great addition, and you bring diversity to the group. And you can only imagine my incredulity. Nene, you've got the wrong guy. You're from Minnesota, that's diverse. So events like this take a lot of work to assemble. It's a collaborative effort, and it's mostly done through volunteers who, like me, believe in advancing the municipal finance industry through creating high-quality content for consumption across market participants, big, small, and everywhere across the board. It's just as important that you showed up, because coming together for this conference in person helps make this a more lively, dynamic experience for everyone involved. Thank you, Nene, for this opportunity. Thank you, Lisa, for your work on everything. Thank you for the CPC, the Conference Planning Committee, for pulling this together. And lastly, thank you, Poonam, for partnering on this effort with me and allowing me to return the favor from our webinar subcommittee fund. Lastly, you may have noticed the tables spread out back there, and you may have thought that this was actually the National Flea Market Association Conference. Fortunately for all of us, it's not, but I'd like to thank our sponsors for making this event possible. And so this is the CPC. Here are our Diamond Plus sponsors, and our Diamond sponsors. And additionally, I'd like to thank our Platinum sponsor, our Wi-Fi sponsor, and Bronze sponsors. Last bit, there is a new member advancement committee reception at 4:30 to 5:30 today, and you can read about it on Whova. We'd love to have as many new members or people who are close to new members or just want to intermingle with people with alcohol as possible. With that, let me hand the stage back to Mark and Powell.
Thanks, Brett. Now. So good morning again. It is now my distinct pleasure to stand before you today and introduce our first honored guest of the 2023 NFMA Annual Conference, the CEO and Executive Director of the National League of Cities, Mr. Clarence Anthony. Throughout his tenure, Clarence has been a tireless advocate for the interests of municipal governments across the U.S. And with his combined visionary leadership and strategic thinking, he's playing a pivotal role in shaping the policies and addressing unique challenges faced by cities, which are manifold in the post-COVID pandemic world. Mr. Anthony began his career at the ripe old age of 24 as mayor of South Bay, Florida, where he served for 24 years, all the way through 2008. In 1999, Clarence also served as president of the National League of Cities, and in 2013, he was named executive director of the League of Cities. Clarence continues to dedicate his career to the needs and aspirations of cities and their residents. Under Mr. Anthony's guidance, the National League of Cities has become an influential and respected voice in advocating for cities and counties, cities and towns at the federal level. His deep understanding of the dynamics between local, state, and federal governments has fostered a more meaningful collaboration environment with all those agencies. And so today we have this distinct privilege of hearing directly from Mr. Clarence Anthony. His insights, wisdom, and vision will undoubtedly inspire us as we navigate the landscape of the municipal credit world, particularly post-COVID. So once again, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Clarence Anthony.
Thank you. Well, while Mark sits down, thank you all so much for having me. My staff asked me, Mark, first, they said, they must not really want anybody to hear you at 8 o'clock in the morning. So thank you guys, those that I talked to at the reception and begged you to be here. Thank you for coming this morning. I see Mike back there from Philly, 76ers. You okay? All right. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's begin with sort of your state of the cities, right? So we're slowly putting COVID in the rearview mirror, but there's no forgetting the scope of the damage to both economic and sort of social impacts across the country. So what does the aftermath look like for your members, and is COVID over?
Yeah, for all of us in this room, first let me tell you, we will never be the same as communities, cities, as individuals. And one of the things you'll find about me, I'm very direct and candid and passionate about what I do. But I'll tell you that the pandemic itself changed me, changed the National League of Cities, changed every organization that you worked in and with. A lot of us lost people and watched people die in communities all over America. And our municipal leaders, we were on the front line every day helping to get food for seniors, helping to identify where the vaccines were. And so part of the first thing I've been working with my municipal leaders to do is just pause for a minute and breathe, because we are different, we've changed, and how we run our businesses has changed as well. We're seeing that cities, towns, and villages are back. Downtowns are open, small businesses, they're surviving. We're watching our economy also respond, because we recognize that 90% of the GDP is local or city governments, whether it's San Francisco or Two Egg, Florida. here in my home state, it makes a difference to make sure we have our communities back vibrant, and local leaders are doing that. I do think a challenge is the recruitment of employees in public service for a number of reasons, but quite a few of private sector now have recruited a lot of municipal leaders into their fold. And so during COVID, you found the remote work opportunity very appealing to not just young employees, but all employees that worked. The other side of your question is, how are cities doing, the economic, and then there's the social impact. All of us during the pandemic, we were stuck at our TVs day and night, waiting for some kind of information about the pandemic, or waiting to see what uprisings were happening in cities, in communities all over America. And one of the things that happened for us was that we actually got a chance to hear data, research. I know there's a lot of misinformation, but then there was the visuals of the gaps that exist in America for people of color. You saw data where health care access was not there, jobs, unemployment, housing, education levels. So as we watched George Floyd, breath being taken out of him through murder, we then started opening our eyes to some of the things that we needed to do in America, that we needed to work on, that we needed to partner on. And I think that, again, as I've watched your association and some of the things that you've done to change your mission, your focus, doing research, I really started admiring what you guys have done. And I really appreciate you standing up and identifying diversity, equity, and inclusion as a part of your mission, as a part of what your fabric is as an organization. I hope that you don't let politics or the temperature of politicians or others change your commitment. To say you have commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is one thing. It's important to have it in a mission, but it's more important that you do the work and just let it happen. So a lot has happened, not just for municipal leaders, but for our nation, for our families, for our communities. COVID, we will never be the same. So where do we go from here is what I'm excited about for our cities, towns, and villages.
Nice, thank you. Let's talk about some of the federal government programs that occurred during COVID. So there was unprecedented amounts of aid, first during the CARES Act and then again in ARPA. What's your assessment of how those programs worked, and what do you think the practical impact was now and then over the long term?
So when the pandemic hit, and a few of you I know in the audience, we were at our March conference, and President Trump was supposed to come, but Kellyanne Conway came, Pelosi came, and all of them had masks on. And I was sitting there like, what's with the mask? What's going on here? By the time we ended the conference, there was this big announcement that all of our communities were just closing down. And I have to tell you, as CEO of the National League of Cities, it was the scariest time of my life, because I did not want to be the executive leader of an organization that was going to go down. I did not want my employees to be laid off. So I was thinking all of those things, but then my phone started ringing. All of these mayors Some were desperate about, are we going to survive? How do we survive? You know, I'm losing revenue every minute in my community. My cities, my small businesses are closing down. It was just a scary time. We didn't have any choice except to go into action. After a while, you're just like stunned. And we went into action, and we started working with the Trump administration to get some money into communities all over America. And so we were able to get the CARES Act created. It was a great start because it gave monies to cities all over America. The challenge was it only provided money to cities over 500,000, which is in America, I'd say 75% of our cities are under 50,000. So we got that money through to the counties, the cities, the states, and we started dealing with the issues of replace revenues, money for our police officers and our front line workers. And in my mind, I tried to talk to our mayors about what does a front line employee look like. It's more than EMS and police. It's also the clerks that, you know, local government never closed down. Your water still came through, your faucet, you know, your sewer went somewhere in your city. I don't know where it went, but it left. And so we were just trying to help the Trump administration and President Trump get the money out, and we were successful. Saved jobs, save a lot of communities because they were going down quickly on the financial side. And then President Biden was elected, and we went to work because only about 38 cities got money directly from the CARES Act. Our vision and goal as the National League of Cities is to get the money in the hands of mayors, city councils, city managers, finance folks that run those cities. And so we worked with the House and Senate to get direct funding to every city, town, and village in America. And that really started our stimulating initiatives that got money directly to water systems, directly to housing, directly to small businesses that had like 40% of a lot of the communities lost small restaurants and boutiques. And so we were working with our city leaders to create ways to stimulate their local economy and create jobs. We also, part of both the infrastructure bill as well as the ARPA is this concept of equity. And we also work with our cities to do research, use your analysis to identify the gaps that exist in your community. And so if you got a gap in your community in terms of broadband in certain neighborhoods and it's not there and it's in another neighborhood at 10G and you only got 1G in one other community, this is a time to really fund those areas that you have not had dollars to fund. And so now that's one thing that I'm really passionate about is using our data and research to tackle the toughest issues at this time. Not the things that you already had money in your budget to do, but things that you always said you wanted to do. So we've been able to work with our members to design their plans in a way that it includes the community. And there's an alignment with the NLC and your association of municipal analysts. We want transparency because we want to make sure that our residents know where those dollars are going. want our members to be educated, just like you are coming to this conference, to be educated so that you go back, you'll have a broader view of how you can do your job. And I'll say, finally, there's nothing like networking. There's nothing like hearing from another professional about how they are approaching climate, how they are approaching their housing deals, how they're looking at their projects and coverage and all of those things. Because you can stay in your little Zoom box, and you'll never get what you're going to get when you get here. And so when I really started doing my research, I was like, they're sort of like us. But one thing we won't do at the National League of Cities is have a 8 a.m. general session. Municipal officials drink a lot more at, well, this is not being recorded, a lot more at night than y'all, obviously, and the cigars and things like that. So, but no, the legislation, if we didn't have it, Mark, I think we wouldn't have come back. So both administrations did really well there. And the other thing about me and the National League of Cities, as much as cities have seen or are seen in terms of this liberal group of leaders, our membership at NLC, we focus really hard on being nonpartisan. And I can say we focus on trying to be nonpartisan in a political world. It's hard. It's hard given this time. I could sit here and say, oh, it never enters what you do. It never enters what I do. But Mark, I can tell you some of the things that I see going on right now in our nation, taking us back, really hurts because I've been in this public life since '84, and I've never seen it as challenging as it is now. And so I know I want to encourage you guys to keep the faith, keep focus, because we got a great country, and all of us built it, and we deserve to be able to be prosperous in this country. So
I love that optimistic tone. We appreciate that.
it's hard now,
Yeah.
but we got to do it. We got to do it.
So talk a little bit too about the timing of the rollout of some of the funding. Obviously, ARPA CARES has come and gone, and that seems to be a decent model kind of going forward. And sort of a quick aside, as analysts, we're sort of worst case type thinkers. So when the next pandemic comes, let's hope not anytime soon, is what has been done so far, is that a good model going forward, or is there a better way to do it?
Yeah, I think as we look back again on the CARES Act and then the ARPA and now infrastructure, because I work for cities, and I think that the best level of government that responds quickest and more productive and more efficient, I'm going to say I like the model of the ARPA because it gets money directly to the cities in their hands. I do think one of the challenges in getting the money in the hands of really, really small cities is that they don't have the infrastructure to really move on the money and the projects. And some have turned the money back because they said it costs them more to receive the money than it does to implement and use the dollars. And that's where you all come in. Our cities need help. They need good research. They need good analysis. They need to be able to develop projects that are going to be profitable for their residents. And this is nothing negative about our municipal leaders. This is just real straight out facts. Because when I ran for office, I didn't have a background in public finance. I didn't have a background in how to structure municipal bond issues or tombstones and all that other stuff. I didn't understand that because I ran because I wanted to fight crime. And that's not negative to our leaders, but everybody has a role. And they are some of the smartest and brightest people that you've ever seen. And all of us have our expertise. You're finance analysis, but you don't know everything about everything as well. So if we partner together and you get your information in the hands of our municipal leaders, not just the finance leaders, because they make recommendations. Our municipal leaders make the decision. And so I'm really working hard to make sure that we make this connection that our two associations have made through me being here. I think there's a real alignment and opportunity for us to connect. And I think that as we look forward, the infrastructure bill, it's wonderful. I mean, the areas that I've talked about, the roads, bridges, we used to get a D plus from the American Society of Engineers. I know we're going to get a better grade, but we got to get the money in a way that there's not the political fighting. If the money is going to the state level, and then mayors have to go up and city managers have to come up to Tallahassee. You are the mayor of Tampa, who happened to be a Democrat. Mayor Castor is amazing. But if DeSantis doesn't like Mayor Castor, those dollars are stuck up in Tallahassee. And it shouldn't be that way. We should get the money right in the hands of city leaders so that they can move forward. So that's the only thing I would continue to push for, whether it's at the county or the city level. That's where the money should come to.
And at the federal level, what do you think about the timing of the flow of revenue from the Infrastructure Reduction Act, or the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act? How's that cash flow from Washington working out? Is it to your satisfaction, or?
Yeah, I think it's coming down appropriately, and I'm really fair and candid. Again, you just can't send money down without some kind of guardrails and some type of direction. And so the regulations are being developed. I don't think that Treasury was ready for this tranche of dollars. I don't think some local governments were not ready for this tranche of dollars. And so what we've done at the National League of Cities is we've created what we call a local infrastructure hub. And the local infrastructure hub was established to help small and medium-sized cities under 150,000, to get prepared to receive the money, develop a plan and vision, and then on the grant side, there are 400 different grant programs available in the infrastructure bill. And it's from water, sewer, from sustainability, climate issues, broadband is in there as well. Water, the bridges program. I mean, there's a lot of money still out there. And I think the local government infrastructure hub is going to help small and medium-sized cities compete against the larger cities. That's the ultimate goal, so that they can be more competitive. When I was mayor in my little small city here in Florida, my city manager was the public works director and the city manager, treasurer and the city clerk. So you go to a city in Orlando, Mayor Dyer, he has probably 80 grant people and about 5 analysts, walking with him, going to the bathroom. I don't know, but you know, small cities that many of us grew up in, they don't have the infrastructure. So that's where we are working, so that when these dollars from Treasury do come out, and I think they are coming out in a very logical and managed way to our communities, they will be used correctly. Because what we don't want is, we don't want to see where cities, and I don't want to use this word because I hope it don't misuse or mismanage these dollars. Now, what is starting to happen in DC right now is, because of the debt ceiling limit, we're starting to hear talk about clawing back some of those dollars that have not been used. And you will, if you've not heard about the National League of Cities, you're damn sure going to hear about them if they try to take my money back. So y'all just get ready. You're like, gosh, I had never heard of them. And all of a sudden these ads come out. You know, these dollars are important. We just investing now, so that I pray that there's never, ever a pandemic in our world again. But this did help us to understand the importance of having a real plan.
So, you know, we're talking about infrastructure and monies to go to that, and obviously everybody here is a fan of tax-exempt municipal bonds, and we know the National League of Cities has been a fan of that as well, and a supporter. So where do we kind of rank in your scale of items of importance? In other words, what time in the morning do you wake up and start thinking about municipal bonds?
Well,
Probably not 8 o'clock, but
when back at, you tell I'm getting old when I say this, my daughter just cringes. Back in the day, you guys don't know this, it's not in my bio. I actually used to work for William R. Huff and Company, a municipal bond company here in the state of Florida, focused on housing, infrastructure. And Bill Huff, if you've never ever Googled or have a book on somebody who has really established a strong company with Raymond James and all those groups, I used to wake up every day because it put money in my pocket if I could get a deal from local governments around here in terms of my bonus. Now, financing is very key to what we are focused on at the National League of Cities, because one of the things that we recognize through surveys is that most needed training and education that a municipal official desires is that of finance, municipal finance. It's different than private finance. They run a budget. Some of them have 3,000 employees. The mayor is the CEO. They have HR issues. It's very similar. But what they're calling us about now is, again, and I don't want to overuse the word, is how do we structure deals in an equitable manner? And I think that is the most difficult thing, because you know, you can see a water and sewer program, so you can see where, you know, the bond proceeds are going to be paid back. You know, you can tell that, see that. You can go downtown and you can pave a street through TIFs, and you can see where that paving is going to help those small businesses in that downtown street come back with those beautiful lamp poles. But when you go into the most challenging neighborhood, you scratch your head of saying, how are we going to structure this deal to work and create and stimulate in this minority community that has not had infrastructure investment, that don't have the opportunities to use TIF dollars, because we don't know if that's going to grow in a way that is going to make a difference. However, this is the time to do that, to dream, to work with the finance directors and the elected officials to say, we got this money, how can we do something with this money that we haven't done before? So that's to me what I wake up in the morning thinking about, that I'm not going to sit in this role and not do something that I can look back 10 years from now and say we had all this money coming in and we did nothing different. And so, I tell my staff, we call it DSD, do something different. And even in your work, I would hope that you would find a project or so that is outside of the normal analytical view of something and say, gosh, we got this big challenge in this community. They don't see it. I'm going to really dig in on this area, and I'm going to just present it to them. Because I think to me, life is just too short to not look back on the impact that your work is doing, and that somebody is actually using your work. That's what I wake up thinking, and I'm not being idealistic. I don't wake up thinking about this every day. But it is important to me that we use this moment. We look at our municipal bond industry and we step outside of the box and figure out the toughest issues, not the easy ones. You can go into DC, you can come into Orlando, hell, you can structure your analysis and information is going to be bright. But you find some rural communities in Mississippi. We all know Jackson, Mississippi is having a horrible time. We know, and this is just not in the South, the Midwest, there are some cities that are suffering. I'm heading to Wisconsin from here, touring a city that is not doing well, and trying to help structure some relationships between their economic development community as well as the city. I'm going there for one meeting, but I'm going to really talk to the city leaders. I don't know, I'm rambling because I want to encourage you guys to DSD, do something different professionally that pushes your brain to structure some deals that nobody could ever think that they would work, and get with the industry leaders on the other side and say, hey, I got this idea. That's what I'd love for all of you to do.
All right. So maybe one more question, and then we can open it up to some Q&A. What's the one thing that the NFMA analyst community should be thinking about, we as analysts be thinking about over the next 10 years for the fiscal outlook for cities and towns?
I think that we're going to continue to see local governments as a driver of the economy of America. We're going to continue to see that. We're going to continue to see the need for improvement of infrastructure, because all of us know that what municipal citizens don't see, they don't think you should fix it, or it doesn't impact them unless the pipes burst or they get one of these notices that the water has been contaminated or something. So there's going to continue to be bridges and infrastructure systems in America. The housing, the shortage of housing, guys, is amazing. We got over a 500,000 gap in terms of the need for additional housing in America. And it's coming to the small and mid-sized cities. Don't sleep on that. Those cities are really going to be places that community that citizens are going to move out of, and we're seeing this, move out of major cities, and they're going to be moving into the mid-sized cities. You're going to see some impact there. You guys are going to really be surprised when I say this. One of the biggest challenges is artificial intelligence. I'm telling you, it is everything that I'm saying. I'm really not here. This is somebody else.
Simulation.
Yeah, they wrote this for me. I Googled it. I went to ChatGPT, and this is where I got my speech this morning. That tool and platform is going to really challenge your ability to be transparent, use discretion as a professional. Don't get lazy and rely on just putting a question in there, because we know that right now that much of the information that's in there don't go past 2021. So be very, very cautious in terms of what kind of information you get from artificial intelligence. And finally, I got to tell you, you are a trusted profession. And misinformation in our time and day is a fact. Somewhere, municipal leaders have to be able to get honest, transparent, reliable information and research and recommendations that's not politically or economically provided. And if there's any place I'm going to ask my leaders to look for is your association, but you as professionals. And I do that because I was in the business for about 5 years. Yeah, that's going to be really key as we look toward the future.
Well, I agree with what you said about the AI and sort of social media in general, and it's events like this, person-to-person type of stuff that, and the networking. That's what develops trust.
I agree.
And that's what we're all here to do, is to network and keep each other eye to eye instead of on a Zoom meeting or something like that. So let me open it up to some questions from the audience. I know it is early, but hopefully you all had enough coffee. Anybody have any questions for us up here? Right there.
Thank you, Clarence. Thank you for showing up. And I do believe the partnership between the NFMA and the National League of Cities would be a really positive thing for both. My one question I have is, what lessons has the National League of Cities learned, and what have the mayors learned from the COVID situation? And if we had another situation, would we do anything different? Other than getting a lot of money from the federal government, where are we set up for the next pandemic?
Yeah, I think, from what I hear from our members, both mayors, city council members, of course, nobody was prepared this time. I do think the way in which they managed the vaccination, they never had that. Now they develop a plan in terms of how do you close a community down. In terms of how do you get food out to residents who historically. So I think what they've been able to do is to put together an emergency response plan for their local communities, more so than they have before. Also, they're looking at their reserves. I think in some ways, to me, I'm being candid with you, some of them put money in reserves and did projects that they already had in the books, and they didn't just put those dollars in reserves, which is good in a way because it strengthens their finances. But I wanted them to use the money for the needs of the community and residents. But I do think it has helped communities think about, if this happened again, do we need 2 times our budget in reserves or 1/3 of our normal budget in reserves? So I think that those will be the things. But they have a plan now that if this happened again, this is what they would do to deploy their residents and get information out to their residents.
What about the gap, the inequitability of the gap? Is that being addressed in, to what extent?
Yeah, in most of the communities, I'll say the ones that we've been able to work with, they have found ways to address some of the gaps. In terms of small and minority-owned businesses, 40% of them just went out of business, had no way of surviving. So you got local communities being able to create dollars to go to those small businesses and help them to come back and to give them low percent loans and things like that. In the housing space, I talked about that. That's still a big challenge. And you're finding residents moving out of urban communities, going into suburban communities because it's just cheaper. I think they have, but not to the level, I think, that in the next 2 or 3 years that we'll be able to see it. But it's being addressed.
In the back there.
Just to follow up on the housing point, I'm a bit intrigued because we've seen in some of the larger states like New York, they tried to push very expansive housing policies, and they've been blocked at local levels. And so I guess I'm trying to listen more to this point. If housing is going to be such a critical part of urban revitalization, especially in some of our larger cities, and they're facing local pressure, in some cases from local governmental officials and local residents. Like, I'm wondering how do we kind of recommend maybe more of a balancing to the city so that we see more housing getting built in some of these high-cost areas throughout the state?
Yeah, that's a really good question and an honest question that I think everybody's been asking because I think the industry, especially construction industry and even some of the finance industry, would say that we need all of this housing, but the mayors and the council members are blocking our ability to do this. Now, and I'm going to be straight with my answer, I represent cities, and I represent home rule. I represent local authority. I represent that when you elect a mayor in a community and the city council in that community, they have the right to design that community and plan that community in the way in which they see that community going in the future. I will also say that there are certain communities that have not in my backyard NIMBY attitude, and they have exclusionary zoning, not inclusionary zoning. They try to block out poor folks, black folks, women, Hispanics, every kind. They just got the kind that they want in their community. So we're going to be fair on both sides. But the true fact of the matter is, if a city wants to plan their community and not just have certain kind of housing plopped here, plopped there, and just run through, because if it goes bad, they're going to the mayor, they're going to the city council, and they're going to that city manager and complain. They're not going to the developer. They're not going to the utility company to complain about uprooting the right-of-way and all of those things. So from that perspective, what we got to do is figure out a way of how we streamline some of this permitting stuff a little bit quicker. Because with technology, it shouldn't take as long. But this is a moment. Anything that, if a city wants to hire a muni bond underwriter They got to advertise for 15 days to 30 days. They got to review the bids. They got to open them in public. God, it goes on and on and on. If I want to hire somebody at NLC, I don't have to go through bids, and I don't have to go through public announcement and advertise it in the paper. It's the process that we put in place as citizens because we didn't trust government. It is our money. So, yes, local government is a barrier, but it's for a reason. And I think if we didn't have those guardrails, I think we'd be complaining about some of our behaviors. Even in the industry, in the muni bond, we'd be complaining. But I agree with you. We got to work on that. Good question.
One more? Yeah.
Related to that, so Mayor McAdams is doing a lot to push the yes in my backyard. That's his whole platform. They're making success because it's not all on him. The bigger problem is affordable housing, not building housing. Building housing any of us can afford to live in,
Yep.
especially in Queens. Having seen Queens, for example, over the last 30 years, completely gentrified. From people moving out of the big cities to the smaller cities. In New York, it's moving from Manhattan to the outer boroughs. That's the flight. But another thing that's pertinent and a challenge that we're really facing, again, the mayor is very strong on this return to work policy, pushing against remote work. But again, if you think about technology and IT, and those cultures are very favorable remote work. So how do we balance the two?
Yeah, I think, good question. City leaders are really scared right now, the major cities, because the downtowns in a city like Washington, D.C. hasn't returned at all. I was just in New York for a board meeting, and you can see where certain parts have not returned back. And I think we got to reimagine those downtowns. You're going to see parking lots being converted into other uses. You're going to see parks having more broadband and more ability to work. I don't think that hybrid work approach is going to ever go away. I am a little bit of, had to come to this, a 3-2 work week at the National League of Cities, which, I'm about collaboration, culture, and connectivity. I want to be able to walk around the office and see somebody in that damn office and talk to them and not have to just wait around till they come on the box and I can't hear you, put your camera on. So city leaders are working on that challenge. Back to your first question about affordable housing. You're right. And when we talk about affordable housing, I'm not talking about, people who are minimum wage. I'm talking about folks that are making really well and still can't afford to buy a house. I'm talking about my daughter who just graduated from college and my son who graduated from college a couple of years ago can't even afford to live in certain places. That is not great. We got to do something about that as a nation. So if that's one of the things that you as an individual or you as an association have some ideas, National League of Cities and our city leaders are open to those ideas. The issue of gentrification, it's real. We still have a house here in Florida that is I'm blessed now, in a country club community. And when I got the job in D.C., one of the things I wanted my daughter to do is live in a middle-class black neighborhood. And I want her to see people, doctors, lawyers, that looked like her, so that she could feel some comfort that there are people in America that did well besides her daddy and mother. And we did that. We intentionally did that. And it was an eye-opening thing for her. That was 10 years ago. Now, the community that we moved in is probably 60% other than black. And it's a challenge in communities when they finally put the infrastructure in that community and they improve it. Then the decision, there's two sides to look at this, and I'm very, again, direct about how I talk. Maybe there's nothing wrong with black folks finally making some damn money off the property they own, right? Where do they go, though, is the next question. They leave a community that's now has investment, and that house that they sold for $500,000, the little piece of house I have in D.C., it's the best investment I've ever made in my life, y'all. But, you hate to see the culture and the foundation of that community be dissolved in a way where gentrification is occurring. But then there's the economic growth side. So I'm not sure of how our city leaders are going to address that, but I hope that we will. The final thing, since I only have a few seconds here, I want to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to be here. Believe it or not, being able to come and talk to folks that I feel I have an alignment with is therapeutic for me. To be able to talk about the last 5 and 6 years and to ask you to pause for a minute and don't just move through these moments. Our society right now in regards to mental health is something that is really a challenge for us as a nation. We need to own that. Our housing, violence in cities right now, public safety issues are real. The opioid, fentanyl issue is damn real. Don't put our heads in the sand around that issue. And I say that because, the visual homelessness that we see, we assume that that's just a few people in America. But this opioid issue started as a middle upper class white problem, especially in rural communities. It is now a real issue all over America. And this fentanyl issue is in our schools. We need to wake up that these are real issues that our city leaders are dealing with, our school leaders are dealing with. For me, when I'm involved in associations, I want to find out what am I going to get out of it professionally, but what can we do as an association to take on the toughest issues? Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of those issues. But what else can you use this platform to do to make our country better and to be able to say, I'm a member of the National Federation of Municipal Analysts, and we're taking on this. Challenge yourself to step outside of the box a little bit and see what your space is, Mark. I think that's what my challenge to you all as an association. And we want to be partners at the National League of Cities.
Wow. Well, thank you. Amazing to have you here. Really appreciate your thoughts, and I and the rest of the NFMA can't thank you enough for your time today. So thank you again, Clarence.
And thank you guys for having me. Thank you.